lesson is about goods and services tax, or GST. So what is GST? It stands for goods and services tax, as we said, and it is an extra amount that we pay to government every time we buy an item or a service. In Australia, it is 10% on every item you buy. So you pay 10% extra on top of the regular price when you buy. And the final price includes GST. So when we see, for example, a microwave is $240, that includes its GST as well. We consider the price before GST to be 100%. Then the price after GST will be 100% plus 10%, which makes it 110%. Price after GST is the price we pay, as we just said, or sometimes it's called price inclusive of GST. Then price before GST is the amount that the seller receives. So price before GST is the actual amount that you're paying the seller. But that extra 10% GST, which also you're paying the seller, he passes on to government. Okay. And the amount we're paying is price after GST. We have price before GST, which is the amount the seller receives. Price after GST, which is the total amount we are paying. And we have GST, which is the difference which the government receives. How do you work out GST? You times 10% by the price before GST. Whatever is the price before GST, times it by 10%, and you find the GST. Or if you know price after GST and price before GST, the difference between them is GST. So GST is price after GST minus price before GST. And you got to remember that price after GST is 110%, and 110% is the same as 1.1. Price before GST times by 110% will give you price after GST. But because 110% means 1.1, we can say price before GST times 1.1 gives you the price after GST. Again, price after GST is the amount you pay. Price before GST is the amount that the seller receives. And GST is the amount that government receives. And if you want to find price before GST and you know the price after GST, divided by 110% or divided by 1.1. So price before GST is equal to price after GST divided by 1.1. So these formulas are important to remember. So price before GST times by 1.1 is price after GST, and price before GST is price after GST divided by 1.1. So let's look at a couple of examples. How much GST do you pay when hiring a plumber who charges $300? So that $300 is the money that the plumber himself or herself gets, but you got to pay also GST on top of that. So that's going to be 10% of that. So this is the price before GST. So price before GST times by 10% gives you GST. So you pay $30 GST. How much do you pay altogether? So now you're going to pay that $300 plus that GST, which is $30. So altogether $330. Or you could have just, to find the price after GST, you could have multiplied the price before GST by 1.1, as we said, before to end up with 330. Example 2, a car has a price of 27,500 after GST. Now we got the price after GST. Find this price before GST and the amount of GST charged. So that is the total amount you are paying. We want to see how much of that is GST, how much of that is price before GST, which the seller of the car receives. Okay, we use the formula price before GST is price after GST divided by 1.1. So here, that's the price before GST. So that divided by 1.1 gives us 25,000. So price before GST is 25,000. Now I have that, I can times this by 10% to get the GST. So GST is 10% of the price before GST. So times that by 10% and you get 2,500. So 2,500 is the amount of GST. Or you could have used the other formula that GST is price after GST minus the price before GST. After GST was that, and before GST was that. You could have subtracted to get the same value, 2,500. That is all for today's lesson. Thank you for your attention.